I don't let anything stop me from doing something I want to do. There's things that I want to do and I just haven't had anyone to do them with. And if that stopped me, I would have missed so many opportunities. But life is about more than just yourself. And I don't really like the quote that happiness is better when shared, but I see how that can be important as human beings, you know, having that kind of connection with other people.
Hello and welcome back to Bath Time with me, Kiley Mac. It is such a treat to be able to continue to make these. I love it. It's been so fun. And today I have my amazing roommate, Justine Lieberman, and she is such a Renaissance woman in the sense of, you know, creating Millennial Mondays, these like amazing series that she has on her Instagram of just life hacks and things to know. You know, you're also in real estate. You also were like a world traveler. You also are a rare species in the sense that you grew up in Los Angeles, which most people who live here do not grow up here. And so I am so excited just to pick your brain and your heart and your spirit a little bit more about, you know, all this wisdom within you and just who you are as a person. So
thank you. That was so many compliments. Wow, I've never done a podcast, so this is fun. Thanks for having me.
Totally. I'm so excited. Yeah, and like when you meet good people, you just want to keep them. Yeah. And I feel like you're one of those people that is just like such a good person who's always looking to support and be of service and like lend a hand. And I feel like those are the people that you want to keep in your life.
Yeah, I think I naturally kind of gravitate towards helping people and especially people in my life. And if I'm surrounded by you, like I'm going to always reach out and see what I can do to help. So that's just kind of a natural thing for me.
Totally.
I guess. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love that you're really like breaking out of, you know, the life that you had been living. You had to like move back with COVID. I'd love you to talk about, you know, like what kind of was happening at that point, but also like, you know, what you're creating for yourself now. Yeah. And so maybe we can just start by chatting about, you know, your values around like independence. I think that's one of my favorite things that I gravitate to you about is just like this mantra that you live about like independence and how you can still weave that into no matter where you are in your life, but really honoring yourself in the process.
Yeah. So
have you always been like that?
I was going to say, if you ask my mom, I've always been super independent. She talks about how when I was like a kid, I would lay out outfits the day before for myself and for my sister. And if those weren't what was worn, even if the weather was like raining and I picked like shorts and a tank, like I'd throw a tantrum if it wasn't what I had decided. So I think I historically as a kid maybe had this kind of weird independence thing, but I'm the third of 4 kids and I have 2 older brothers and they grew up playing sports and I wanted to do what they did. So they would play sports and I ended up being like the only girl on the team. I was like, it was all boys and then Justine. And everyone knew who I was because I was literally the only girl.
This is true.
So I think independence and like kind of fighting for what I want to do regardless of, you know, what the expectations are based on my gender, anything like that. I've always just kind of been like, well, I want to play baseball. And the park I played at had to change the schedule around so that I could play baseball and softball because they never had a girl who wanted to do both. So like as a kid, I guess I've always had this kind of independent spirit. And then I feel like I kind of lost that like growing up in high school and as an adult. I went to like a private high school and I lived in kind of this bubble, didn't really get out of my comfort zone. But after college, I kind of realized like there's so much more I want to do. And if I'm going to wait on another person to do the things that I want, my life is going to go by and I'm going to miss it, you know? So that kind of led me to, I started solo traveling when I was 24. I was nervous to do it. So I did like a group trip just to test it out. And after that, I was like, I can totally just go and figure it out. Like it's not that scary. I think that's what people fear is like being independent. They like the idea of it, but the actual like I think there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. If you're alone, there's something empowering about that. If you're able to take that and actually like grow from it, learn, meet people, make friends. I think when people think like solo travel, they think you don't speak to anyone and you're like, you don't like say anything or like talk, you're silent. No, like solo travel is like the opposite. Because you're alone, you're able to talk to so many more people. I've met people on trains, planes, hostels, like group trips that I decided to just like hop onto. And it's amazing. Like it's the best thing I ever did. So yeah, and then independence, just in general, like I don't let anything stop me from doing something I want to do. The reason that I met Brooke, who also lives here, is because I went to an event by myself. I was like, I want to go to this event. I had a free +1, and I couldn't find anyone to come with me. And that's such a consistent thing in my life, is that there's things that I want to do, and I just haven't had anyone to do them with. And if that stopped me, I would have missed so many opportunities. So I kind of just decided right after college, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let anything hold me back, especially going by myself. So I guess that's why I'm so independent. It's so funny that you say that, because I don't even think about it. It just comes kind of natural to me. And it's funny because I'm trying to slow down and trust people. And like if they say they're going to show up, I need to be like patient that they're going to show up. And if they don't, I need to like explain that my expectations of that. Because I can just go do things by myself. I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But life is about more than just yourself. And I don't really like the quote that happiness is better when shared. But I see how that can be important as human beings, you know, having that kind of connection with other people. So I'm trying to explore that more. I'm like doing, I think, the opposite of what most people do. They like find people and they do everything with them. I like found myself. I'm really like, I'm happy to be on my own doing my thing, but I just know like no one succeeds alone. Like it's so hard to reach your goals by yourself. You need a good support system. And I just, like I have my family and they're amazing, and I have my friends, but I don't have like that constant unconditional support that I think humans kind of need.
Totally. You're calling in your soul fam, that like, you know, you're that family that you want, that's gonna like be there with you along the way. And I love what you said. It is like, it is corny, but that one quote that's like, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like you expedited your process of like finding yourself, being comfortable with yourself, which some people go through a whole life and never do that.
Yeah.
So like you really like cut the codes quick, in the sense of like anchored in yourself, know what you want, and from that space you're like, cool, I can go through life doing whatever I want and I'll be just as happy. And now the like something I haven't explored, like another adventure for me, is like now to call in those people. And like, who are those people? And as I know from my own journey, when I started calling in those people, I realized there's some that will always stay, but there's some that you think will always stay that drift away. And that's the hardest part, is like when things kind of shift and you're like, wait, but I thought, but like just trusting, like anchoring yourself, like, no matter what, I know that I'm good and that I have these people and that the right people will come to me. And just through traveling, I'm sure you're like, oh, I'd really like to do this today. And then like 2 days later, you meet someone who's like going to that same trip and you're like, oh, cool, let's do it. You know, it's like the right people come to us when we have that clarity.
It's so funny you say that, because I feel like a lot over the years, I say like I lost a lot of friends, but I actually chose for them to not be a part of my life because they were toxic in some way, or I didn't feel like I was my best self when I was around them. And I think a lot of people go through that in their 20s, I imagine. But now finding people to actually like that are going to stay and depend on them, like that is such a weird thing for me, because I'm always surprised if people actually show up when they say they're going to show up, because I know I will. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm there. I'll do it. I'll be there. I'm ready. But I haven't really experienced that from other people for me. And so many of my friends are like, oh, I'll come visit you when you're traveling to wherever. And I lived in New Zealand, and so many people said they would come visit me. And someone actually came to visit me, and my sister and one of my friends. And I was just like surprised. I just couldn't believe that someone wanted to like actually follow through.
Yeah.
And that's something that is so normal to me. I'm very intentional with my words. I don't say I'm going to do something unless I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
even Kara yesterday asked me if I could give her a ride this morning. She wanted to be at a store by 8. I was like, sure, what time do you want to leave? And she told me, and I was there, and she texted me. I was like, I knew you would worry, but don't worry, I'm ready. Like, I like that people can count on me, but I don't always get that back.
Yeah, so you're calling that in now to be surprised with that. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. There's something that you've talked about once, which was just recently, like right before we came on, when I was telling you about what I wanted to chat about. And we talked a little bit about, independence. And I think sometimes people think of independence as like how they think of like solo travel, like, oh, independence, like you only think about yourself, you're only doing what's best for you, you're only ever thinking me,
Mm-hmm.
and or like me, myself, and I. And what I like about your perspective on independence is I'd love for you to talk more about it, but just, even if you're married, even if you have kids, even if, like, what point do you continue to like cultivate those practices so that you can have that healthy relationship with yourself and have that independence that like can be your own compass in your life, even if there's other people depending on you or in your circle? Like,
yeah, I think maybe I've seen this from my parents who have been married for 34 years, and they are so different. And my sister jokes that, they're not in love, but their love or like their relationship is this very supportive, very independent. They have such different lives, and they come together and they support each other in ways that I think when you think of marriage, you think like romance, love, like gifts, blah, 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 like special occasions. Like my family's always been this kind of like my parents have always had this just unconditional love. The way my dad talks about my mom when she's not there, the way my mom talks about my dad when he's not there. And when they're together, they have their own lives. And I think that's why they are succeeding at still being together, because that independence is actually so important. And people don't realize that. Like, they think once you get married, because I would have loved to have gotten married young and like started a family young, because that's something I've always wanted. But 2 things, I don't want to settle for the wrong thing, and so there's no pressure. But also 2, like people are like, oh, you don't want to settle down, it like ruins your life. But I think it only ruins your life if you allow it to. If you say, okay, I'm married now, so I can't do anything. That's like the worst way to think. If you're married, you can still go solo travel. You can still go for a month and do the things you want to do. Just because your partner doesn't want to do that thing doesn't mean that you can't. And I think people think once you're married, you have to do everything together, else it's not a successful relationship. I just completely disagree. Like, I think you can go to a cafe and drink coffee by yourself, whether you're married or you have like a best friend or whatever it is. Like, there's some places I guess I would feel weird going by myself, but like my favorite independent thing to do is like go get a meal that I really want and just like go and order it and journal or read a book and just like sit and be with myself in kind of this peace and be able to people watch. It's so funny. You see people arguing all the time. They argue because they're not doing enough for themselves, by themselves. And I mean, I guess not everything has to be by yourself. It's good to have company and people to do things with. But I think when you have that alone time, you're able to kind of recharge and have better relationships because of that balance.
Totally.
Yeah.
No, and I
hope that answered what you
No, yes, it's badass. I think it's such a cool invitation for people, because it's like you only settle if you like settle within yourself. Right. So it's like, at what point do you say, like, this is what I want? And I guess my next question to you would be like, some people I think don't even stop to ask, like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, do I want to travel? Do I want to go eat a meal? I think people are just like in it and they're doing stuff. I get that way too, where it's like I have to like stop and make myself be like, hey, what are your goals this year, these 5 years, this week? Like, and really like stop. And so Stevie and I were talking about journaling a lot and all that. And like, how do you get clarity on like, do you just wake up one day and you're like, I want to move to New Zealand? Or are you like, like for these practices of your independence, when you're solo traveling, when you're doing stuff, like, how do you keep that own like inspiration, I guess, going?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's so funny. I don't like questions that are like, what's your goals in 5 years? I don't like to set New Year's resolutions. Those are things that prevent you in some ways, in my mind at least, from, I think it can help you succeed, but I also think it can hinder you from succeeding, because if you create these goals and then a year later, like a 5-year plan, and a year later you decide, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. You wake up and you're like, I'm not happy doing this. That's what happened with me working in television production. I went in high school, I got an award for like most likely to be a director. I went to college and studied TV production. I wanted to work on television shows. That was what I wanted. And I did all of that. I built a career in that. And I realized, I mean, it was like probably a year of time. I was like, no, this is what I want. And I was trying to convince myself that because I set this goal when I was 15, that at 24, this is what I still wanted. And I think if you can notice that you're unhappy, and I guess I'm trying to figure out how you know that, but I just was tired. I was tired, mentally exhausted. I didn't want to go to work. You got to listen to yourself, listen to your body, like what you need. And just because you made a goal, and that's something I had to really work through, transitioning from working in entertainment and now going to real estate, that was like, I want to say like a year and a bit process for me, because I felt like I was giving up my dream. And it's so funny, I don't really actually believe in dreams or wishes. And I think for some people that motivates them. For me, it's not reality. And so I live like a very realistic, like day to day. So I'm not going to be like, oh, one day I'm going to come here and jump in the ocean every day, like while living here, for example. That was a thought I had. But I was like, you know what? Realistically, I'm not going to do that. But if I go whenever I wake up, or the night before, if I'm like, you know what, I want to jump in the ocean, I'm going to push myself to do that, take that feeling and go with it. And I think that's what happened with solo travel. With New Zealand, I went to visit, I did like a 2.5-week trip. And there was one town I went to and I just like felt like I didn't get enough. And I was like, you know what? It's probably just because I'm solo traveling. And I went to Australia and then to Hawaii and did all that stuff. And I came back to LA and I was like, you know what? That feeling has not gone away. And how do I listen to that and actually do something about it? And I think that's a really hard thing to do, especially when you have family, friends, jobs, whatever it is that puts the pressure on you to do what you are supposed to do. And I just don't believe in doing what you're supposed to do. I think that's, you put yourself in a box. And I think a lot of people live their lives kind of like zombies. They build a career. Why do we need to build a career? I mean, do you have to? Like, yeah.
What people argue.
Yes. So there's a lot of
pros. But then you can lose your job any day.
Yeah. But if you're also building a career on something that makes you unhappy, I didn't want to wake up in 10 years and be like, why am I doing this? And I think there are hints, in your day-to-day that make you realize, like, this isn't the right thing for me. And now working in real estate, it's so funny. I was so afraid of changing careers, jobs, whatever. But I love my job now. It's so funny because I think I cared so much about what other people would think. Because working in TV is cool. Working on movies and TV shows, I got to work with some amazing actors and directors and all this talented crew. And I really enjoyed it. And I miss it sometimes. But my day-to-day life is so much more enjoyable right now. There's so much more balance. I can make my own schedule. As much as I was intense on the grind, and if there are things that had fallen into place for me, like I interviewed for this training program to be an assistant director. Long story short, I got to the final interview twice. They only have like 20 people that get to the final interview. And I got rejected twice. And I think sometimes the universe is also telling you, like, this isn't your path. If I had gotten that, I think I would have done that and I would have loved it. But that wasn't my path. My path, I think, is bigger than working on TV shows that get canceled or like, and I love it. And I still love going to set. I love talking to my friends that work in production, but it's hard. Like, that's a difficult life. And And I think if you're able to kind of listen to what your heart wants, and like, for me, I'm just very realistic about the thought process. And so it sometimes takes a while, but I get there and I'm kind of like, you know what, this is what I want to do. Or like, let's try it and see how it goes. And if I try it and I hate it, I don't do it. If I try it and I love it, I continue it. So just kind of listening to yourself and not the people around you, not what they think. Because if you ask everyone their opinion, they're all going to say something different. But you have to live that life every day. So you need to make sure that you're happy with it.
Totally. And I think it's hard when like you had the dream for 9 years, and then also like what that dream is like perceived as glamorous. So like for instance, production, like we both have a background in production, and I remember, you know, we'd work on commercials for like Oakley and Red Bull and Jeep and the North Face and like really cool brands, like really high-end productions. Yeah. But you never saw the day of light or the light of day. And you and I talk about the light of day. Either way. You know, it's like you wake up, you get there, you leave at 4 a.m., you're home by like 2, you're eating like crap on set. Like I remember everyone would be eating like McDonald's and I'd be like sipping my juice in the corner. And like, you know, it's like, and it just creates such like a gnarly lifestyle. And then it's like, those are the only people you're seeing for weeks or months at a time are the people you work with, which luckily I loved everyone I worked with, but I was usually one of like 7 to 18. Like, it was all guys and me. Yeah. Or, like, the talent manager would be a woman and she'd come in and out for a moment. Or, like, it was just crazy. Like, and so for me, that's also what kind of burned me out in that direction, was just, like, dang, like, it's really cool and it's adrenaline and, like, you feel like you're doing something and, like, everyone's super sweet and creative and there's room to grow. And, like, I also had just started studying to, like, potentially be an AD or, like, potentially even be an AC. And so it's just, like, wow, like, all these cool opportunities. And, but then it's, like, wow, my life is like passing me by. Yeah, and like while some people can be in it, I was like, whoa, I had that moment too where I was like, I fast forwarded my life and I was like, I don't know if I want this. Like, or, you know, if I have a kid with someone and then they're doing, I'm like, oof, I just like, for me, it was like, yeah, that change of like, it's cool. And like, what's this next step? And so, you know, I think it's hard when it's like, oh, but it's so glamorous. Like you're working for these cool people or doing this cool thing. And it's like, that's almost what keeps you strung along for. You're like, maybe they're right. I need to like keep, you know, practicing this. But it really, I love what you said about like, no, just like sometimes like you get to just kind of choose that more freedom. Like now you have more freedom in your day, you're planning your day and you're living a whole different life, but you're in the sunshine and you're like choosing what you want to do and you're, you know.
And I think people like, because I worked on the Bachelor series, for example, when I tell people that is a cool thing to say, but other than that, that experience was exhausting. I worked overnights. I most of my jobs in production, I was basically a glorified babysitter in some capacity. That was like literally just what my jobs were. And so I think people think they're cool when they hear about it, and that's it. And it's so funny, I worked on The Bachelor in 2014, okay? So 7 years, when I was 21, I worked on the show. And people will still talk to me about it and like will ask me about it. And I'm like, yeah, that was a long time ago. Like that's not my life. I have so many other things. But I also find it fascinating how obsessed, and I think it's a very American thing, how obsessed we are with people's jobs. Your job defines you in America. Your job is like not even really a part of you. It's something you do, but it's not who you are. And I think when I realized that as well, like I don't want to be defined Justine Lieberman, the real estate agent, or Justine Lieberman, the set PA. I like that. Those are a part of my life and a part of my journey, but they're not who I am. You know, I'm someone who like enjoys new experiences. Like I'd rather talk about that, or like, you know, I'd love to help people. So if I have an expertise in something, like I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to work on set, call me. Let me talk to you and talk you out of it. If, you know, unless that's really what you want to do, I'll sit down. I will teach you how to be a set PA if that's really what you want to do. But most people don't realize that's not actually what they want to do because it's it's glorified. And even when pre-COVID going to bars in LA, gosh, I hated it when guys would come talk to, hey, so what do you do? And I'm like, and I would literally go, why does that matter? Why does it matter what my job is? And I think there's something like very empowering of saying that, because we give it so much value that if you have, 10,000 followers on Instagram. Are you more important than someone who has 500? No. Like, why do we give value to these like silly things? I mean, why do we care so much about what other people think? It's more important that we are happy with our day-to-day lives, because as individuals, we are always there.
We have to live it, get to live it. Yeah, exactly. No, and that's why, like, when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk with you today, I was so excited, because that's something I keep trying to do is, like, if someone's known for music, like, I want them to talk about, their mindfulness or their, like, secret practices they do. Like, I don't want it to just be about what people think. And so with you, I was like, independent woman. Like, like, truly, like, what you believe with romance even is really inspiring. And just, like, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that belief.
Well, I don't think I told you, but okay, so I haven't really dated since 2017. It's been a hot minute. But I was seeing someone, and it actually just ended this weekend. Yeah, and it's so funny because, like, people are like, congrats. "Oh, I'm sorry."
I'm like, "Congrats."
And I'm like, it's the thing is that it's not necessarily a sad thing, because and I'm following actually this like dating guidance person, and she says if it's right, there's nothing you can do wrong. If it's wrong, there's nothing you can do right. And I think as long as I'm true to myself, and like with this guy, I told him that I liked him. Like, that's not scary for me, because I say that to people all the time. Yeah. But we were at almost 3 months, and he never told me he liked me. And I was like, I deserve someone who sees my value the way that I see my value. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're so conceited." I'm not over here being like, I'm the most beautiful person in the world. Like, no one's better than me. I'm the best you could ever have. I don't speak those to myself, but I do recognize what I deserve and what I want. And if I'm not getting that from someone, and I guess that's why I haven't really dated. It's like, if I don't see that potential, I can't just like walk through it and be like, this is fine. Yeah. Because it's not fine. It's not a problem. Like, him and I had a couple conversations, and I want someone who chooses me. I think relationships are, your lives need to work together. I don't know how much I believe in like timing. You can meet someone and maybe it's the wrong timing. I'm sure that's also true, but I just genuinely think if it's the right person, it works. And the people that are in like successful relationships, like it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm so nervous to talk to them about whatever." And that was part of the issue, was like, I was afraid to be vulnerable with this person. Isn't that what a relationship is being vulnerable? So hint number one, it wasn't going to work, and at the same time, I think that a lot of women, maybe men do this too, but I'm just speaking from my experience, they kind of think about a future with someone without being given any hints to that's actually what it's going to be. And like I said, I live in a very realistic mindset. So if a guy is not talking about the future with me, why would I think about the future with him? Yeah. Like I thought about this recently, because I think we kind of romanticize. We meet someone at a bar, or we see someone, and we can literally picture what our life would be with that person. And I think it's so crazy that our brains just do that. Yeah, totally. Like, I don't know, have you done that?
Totally. Our brains are like wired to do that.
Yeah. Totally. It's so wild that's kind of what, I don't want to say naturally happens, but that's what happens. And we don't think twice about it. And I started thinking twice about it. I was like,
oh, totally.
Why am I thinking about a future with a person who has not given me one single hint that we will have a future? And maybe it kind of makes me a little bit more guarded, a little bit more cold, but I think that's important. Like, someone needs to be able to deal with all sides of me. And like last week, part of the reason we kind of ended was like, I had a very stressful week, and the most he really said to me was, "I'm sorry that your week is stressful." I was like, a stranger could say that to me on the street. I want my partner, I'm looking for an equal partner. I'm looking for someone to share my life with. I'm not looking for someone to take care of me. I'm not looking for someone, like a husband, to pay the bills. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. And so I feel like I know what I want, and it's very clear when I'm not able to get that, because I don't have like a checklist, but I just have, I think people get like red flags or things that are worrisome, and they're like, oh, but that might change. And you know what? I do that too. I really do. I'm like, oh, like maybe he'll tell me he likes me. But here's what I'm given. I'm taking it. I've looked at it, and it's not right. Like, I know it's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I waste more time with that person?
Totally. And like something I think about is like, I just want like my best friend. I just want my buddy, and we just like continue to choose each other every day. And like that, like your best friends is like, you can still go in life and not have to talk every day, or maybe you do, or it's just like that, your special buddy, like your best friend. And I think that comes with like being vulnerable, being able to share, like being able to explore and not explore, just like having that good basis. And that's cultivated with time, but sometimes it's instant. So it's just, and then it's like seeing who stands the test of time, which I think is another cool process.
And my grandfather, him and my grandparents have been together. I was actually born on their anniversary.
Aww.
On their 40th anniversary, and I was the first female grandchild.
Wow.
And so they say I was their anniversary present. But they've been married for, how old am I? 28. 68 years. And it's so interesting talking to them about like love and relationships. And my grandfather said, if you're not growing together, what are you doing? You have to be growing together, and not only like your relationship, but as your individual life grows, like if they're staying down here and you're kind of growing in this way, it's hard to make that work. And I think I'm very lucky that I have role models in my life that kind of have shown me like what relationships should be like. But I agree, like I want a best friend. I want someone who I can support unconditionally and who supports me unconditionally. And that two-way street is hard for me to find. And that's my problem. I don't want to be telling a guy that I like him and he can't say I like you. Why would I want to be with someone like that? Like, why would anyone want to be with someone like that? And I think it's hard to walk away, but I think because I've had so many experiences by myself, it's not so scary to be alone. I'm not lonely, I'm alone. And like I said earlier, there's a difference.
Well, and back in the day, I forget what community, but alone used to be all one. So when you were alone, you knew that you were still connected to all things. That's so cool. All one, alone.
That's so, I love like the history of words. I think about them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, it's so cool. That's so really cool.
I love that. I know. Well, gosh, we should get your grandparents in the bathroom and have them pick up. Can you imagine? It's so cute.
Yeah. It's adorable.
But I love that. Like what they take away is just like having that balance of someone who's like, but what I love is like, because I've been in relationships where I was like, cool, let's grow together by like only focusing on ourselves, and we'll like come and intermit, but like our relationship wasn't like the main thing we were focusing on growing on. No, and then vice versa, where I've been in relationships where like we were focusing on growing us, but then like the other things were kind of getting, so I think it's really cool to think about the balance of both of those, like in yourself, growing in your life, in your friendships with your family and your friends, and then also growing in this relationship with that person. Yeah. And I think that's, because gosh, I kind of shot myself in the foot last year because I was like, my next partner, I want them to prioritize their passion and purpose and their friends and family and themselves before me. And I like later was like, shoot, because then I got that. And I was like, oh no, I meant like me in the mix. Like they prioritize their purpose, their passion, their friends, their family, themselves, and me. Yeah. Like why did I need to put myself below? So I was like, whew. So like in this next wave, I'm like, no, it's all there and one, and you're growing with all, like walking up that mountain together with all of it.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to convince anyone to make you a part of their life. And so even, this guy I was seeing, like, just as any friend in my life, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to put in the effort. This is the thing I know about myself is that, like I said, if I put in the effort, I'm going to follow through. Yeah. But I don't trust that people are going to do that back. And with
you're working on trusting.
Sorry. You're right. I'm working on trusting people. I think I have just, like, not a great track record of follow through. And so no matter who they are, or whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship, if I'm not getting that two-way street, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, talking about friends earlier, saying I some were toxic, but some just also weren't putting in the effort, or they were putting me down. And it's like, well, I'm not going to lift you up while you put me down.
No.
And so I looked at this romantic relationship as a friendship. Like, I want more from that relationship, and that's not where it was going.
Yeah.
And it's the same with friends. Like, if I'm not going to be the one, reaching out always. It's just not fair. The phone works both ways. And yeah, I think sometimes you got to step back and just take a look and make sure, like, are you living your life for other people, or are you living your life for yourself? So that's kind of, I guess, my experiences have been like, you know what? I need to live my life for me, because no one else is going to live it. And I'm so grateful, like, that I've traveled so much. I've been to 18 countries by myself. And that was in the last 4 years. And that's including the pandemic, which I haven't been on a plane since I came back from New Zealand. And it's so funny, like, it made me realize one of my life goals is to get to every country in the world. Like, I love learning about new cultures, meeting new people, having those new experiences. And so, it's crazy to think that, like, anything could stop me or prevent me from doing something, because no matter what, even if I was in a relationship, I would hope that they would want to join me, that's a value I want in someone who likes to travel, because that's what I like to do as well. And I want to have a partner that does that stuff with me. But at the same time, like, if we work in all other ways and that's just my thing, then that's my thing, and that's okay.
Totally.
So
I love that. Of all of those 18 countries, what are, like, your top 3 that just, like,
are the best?
Either, like, we need to visit, or, like, are the best? And I'm sure they all are for their own reason, but just the first 3 that come to mind.
Yeah. So, I love New Zealand. I loved it so much I moved there. Sadly, only lived there for about 5 months until COVID kind of brought me back. But it's just a beautiful country, and there's no natural predators, so you can, like, go hiking and camp anywhere, and there's no snakes, there's no bears, there's nothing. The worst you'll see is other humans or sheep. Yeah. So I love New Zealand. It's just a beautiful, beautiful country and amazing people, and it's kind of a mixing pot of, like, people from all different countries as well. Plus, it's, like, the thrill capital of the world with bungee jumping. I love adrenaline stuff, like, throw me off a bridge with a rope or with a cord, and I'm super happy. So I love that. I also love South Africa, which I've gone with my family probably 20-something times because my grandparents still live there. But it's just going, like, where Cape Town is, this very, like, southern part of South Africa, is just the most incredible everything. Hiking. My favorite hike is there. It's called Lion's Head.
My friend lives right at the base.
Oh my god.
I have a few friends that live there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's, like, wine tasting, amazing food, so much stuff to do.
I heard it's a lot like California, but, like, in one spot. Like,
yeah, and then there's, like, the whole garden route you can drive along, and it's just gorgeous, beautiful views, great people. And I did the garden route by myself last time I was there because I wanted to bungee jump off the highest bridge bungee in the world, which is Blokran's Bridge in, like, the middle of nowhere. It's near Plettenberg Bay, but it was, like, amazing. What other countries do I love? I love Croatia. I like Dubrovnik is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Wow.
And so funny. People are like, "Oh, King's Landing," and I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I've watched Game of Thrones, so I get it, and, like, it's, like, cool. I like film, TV history with, like, travel. I think it's cool to kind of see, but I think maybe I'm a little, like, toned down because I worked on set. Like, really, even watching things, I'm like, it's so hard for me to, like, suspend my disbelief enough to, like, believe what I'm watching and, like, get emotional about it or any of that stuff, because unless it's, like, really well done and nothing, like, catches my eye, like, editing, production value.
I know, it's
like,
a curse. Blessing and a curse.
Yeah. But, yeah. Europe is cool as well. I've had, like, one of my favorite days was in, like, Vienna, Austria. And I just kind of, like, I joked that I, like, skipped around the town for a day. I was only there for, like, a little over 24 hours. And it's my favorite day because I was just so happy. I didn't really meet anyone, or like, I went to like a theme park by myself and went on like the highest ride there was. I was like, yeah, let's go on that one. And I was like, oh my God, I might die. But then I didn't. So then I was like, cool. And then I saw a puppy. Like, I remember that day so vividly. I stood in line for the opera because if you do standing room, instead of it being like super expensive, you can pay like equivalent of like $4 or whatever to stand and watch. And then you can leave whenever you want. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to experience this place and just go. And I found an amazing gluten-free restaurant. I like was so happy. It was just like such a good day. And so I think about, and like people are like, oh, like if you ask me my happiest day, when I did 2 months in Europe and I saw so many cool things. I went into the Stonehenge Circle and I like chose to do a lot of these really cool experiences. But that was my favorite day. And there was nothing extremely special. I didn't meet anyone in particular. I just like literally skipped around this town and like just enjoyed it so much.
Wow.
So I don't know. I think we get like, I want to give value to the things that I do. I don't want other people to tell me what, I don't want people to say Paris is the greatest city. For me, I went to Paris and I was like, oh, this is a cool city, but there's nothing really special to me. I love the Eiffel Tower. Wow. Yeah. I was like, I just want to hang out by the Eiffel Tower. But like, there's so many other things that I was like,
It's the magic of what found you that day.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like your perspective and your energy and what you give to where you're at. If you're always thinking about the past or the future, or worrying about the future, you're just never going to be present. And being present has been such a big part of my life in the last few years. And I think I see the world very differently. And people talk about their dreams. And I'm like, that's so great if that's what works for other people. But I don't think about that stuff. I think about what I'm doing right now. I want to be here.
Yeah.
I don't want to blink and my life pass me by.
Yeah.
And like you said, in production, there was a show I worked on for 3.5 months and I don't remember anything. We kind of talked about this earlier before this. Like, I don't remember family events. I don't know if I ever even saw my family. I don't know if I showered every day. Like, I don't remember living my life. I just remember working on that show and the stress and I was so tired and exhausted, and I'm surprised like I didn't get in a car accident after a long night. The last night we finished at like 6:30 a.m. We started at like 10 a.m. and finished at 6:30. And I was living with my parents at the time, and I got home and my mom was like, oh, do you want to go for a walk? As I come home, and I was like, no, Mom, I need to go to bed. I have no like consistent balance in my life. And the show after that was such a great experience that it put things in perspective. That's what it should be like to work on a show. But then that amazing show I worked on got canceled. And it's like, well, you know what? Like, if I was on an amazing show and with a great cast and crew, the people I'm surrounded by, then I would have loved to continue doing that. But every great show I worked on got canceled, and it was before the Me Too stuff, and I kind of dealt with my fair share of, I don't want to get too into detail about that, but I dealt with a lot of some really hard things, and it's hard when you work for other people. You have to deal with what they do. I was a talent agency as well, and my boss didn't really show up for work ever, and so I was just yelled at by clients all day. And I was like, why would I want to do this? And I care, I would put all my energy into it, and it's like, well, why am I doing this? This is my life, my one life. I don't want to look back and be like, yeah, I worked at a talent agency for 1 year. I'd rather look back and be like, I lived in New Zealand for a year, or I took whatever was calling me and I just did it. Even moving here, I had a totally great place. I just built, I worked with my dad to build, and I was like, you know what? I've never lived by the beach.
Yeah.
Let's live by the beach. If you think too much about your decisions, like, it's good to think things through, but if it's not gonna, if this living here didn't stop me from working, it hasn't stopped me from seeing my friends, it hasn't stopped me from anything.
And you may have built one of your best friends.
Yeah.
Iman.
Yeah. And it's so funny because you just never, if you don't take that risk of trying something new, you don't even know what you're missing. You're going to become stagnant. You're going to become comfortable with life just as is. And there's so much more to life. Like, you can either be comfortable or you can grow. And I love growing. I love changing. Yeah. People are like, oh, you want to try this thing? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And not saying that I'm like on the streets, like trying, like create whatever. But you know what I mean? It's like, think things through to a point of like, if someone wants to go skydiving, let's go skydiving. Like, if someone wants to go try a new food, let's do it. Like, the only thing that it can do is make me better in some way, to share an experience with someone new or have a new experience that puts life in perspective. And sometimes you need that just to like snap you back into like reality of like, this is life. And we forget that like anything could happen. I could get in a car accident tomorrow. And like looking back, and not to get intense, but even during quarantine, I was like, you know what? If this is what life is like for the rest of my life, which would really suck, I'm really glad that I always chose to do something new and crazy to other people, because those are the memories that are going to get me through. You know, imagine if I was building a career and working on set for the last, 9 years or whatever, 8 years. I think I would have been so mad at myself. I would have kicked myself for doing that. So I'm grateful I've done all the things I wanted to do. I feel like there's more I could have done.
Always.
Yeah, always.
Be gentle with yourself.
I know. You're right. And it's so funny. Even being here, I'm learning like how to be gentle with myself and to be patient. Like, patience is something I don't, and that's why I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move to New Zealand. Okay. And I like decide to go, and I go. And I'm not very patient with things, but I'm working on it. And hopefully I'll get better at it. So
totally. One of my teachers once told me, it was in yoga, but it was back in the day, and I remember we were in like a super intense position, and she was like, a few more breaths, and I was like, I'm gonna like pass out. And I remember she was like, we often want to give up right when it gets hard, and she's like, often if you even just take like 3 more breaths, like that's when the magic happens. And so for me, it was like a really small, like very small ripple effect in my life. It was like a pebble she threw in my pond of my patience pond of being
your
like,
patience pond.
I'm going with it right now. Yeah. I always get in weird analogies. It helps me understand. Yeah. But like, to me, that was a nice ripple effect of like, oof, like if I'm in this conversation with someone and it's like getting heated, I'm like, instead of just being like, oh, I'm done, I'm like, okay, take 3 breaths. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, 3 breaths. Or like, if I'm in a weird situation, like 3 breaths, or 3 breaths can be 3 weeks or 3 months, or, like to me in life, it's like depending on the scale of like relationships or projects or whatever it is. Like when things get hard, my thing is like, well, screw this. I don't need to deal with this. And I'll dip, which is also a superpower. And I've noticed even just the few more breaths or few more moments, whatever it is, even weeks, then giving it that time, because then often sometimes it has been, boom, the magic happened right then. I never could have known I could have enjoyed something this much or done that. I'm like, oh, and if I would have left, I never would have understood. And it's a very careful balance, because also that's how you get stuck in trauma and toxic loops, and they're like, oh, just 2 more weeks, or staying comfortable. So it is a balance. But for me, my practice was like, I was so good at being like, all right, screw this, bye. That for me, it was a good practice of cultivating my patience, which is why I'm sharing, because maybe it'll help you too. There's a few more breaths. Yeah. And like,
I think that's a good way to look at it. I definitely just want to get to the destination. Like, and I've, not to take that analogy, but like I'm trying to enjoy the ride to get there. And you have to find something you love in that journey. And I know that, and I'm working towards it. Like even now I've ever since high school, college, I've just like not enjoyed reading. I just like, if I could do anything but read, I was happy. And I haven't like read a book in forever. And one of my goals here is like not to turn on the TV. If I want to be entertained, I'm going to read a book. I'm going to read, or I'm going to go. I'd rather sit at the beach and just have my thoughts than like put just like a television in front of me. And I think it's really interesting how much that's helped with my patience. And it's so funny because I do have kind of, not a short temper, but like, I'll be like, okay, this needs to be done. And I feel like I'm patient, but I get to a point where it's like, okay, like, let's just get to where we're going. But I realize I mean, and everyone hopefully will realize this, you can't control other people. You can't control the weather. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react. And that's the power. And you're right. Those extra 3 breaths can change everything. If you deal with someone who's a difficult person, you know, you can't necessarily change their perspective, but you can change how you talk to them. You can change how you react to what they say. You know, if someone says something mean to you, like I had a friend who told me that she was worried about me and said that I didn't love myself. And I was like, that is not something. And we were like at a bar. It was like the worst place for a deep conversation. But I think, and it's so funny because I hate to say that maybe she was projecting, but in that moment, I could have been like really upset. But we were with friends and I was like, okay, like, and even just controlling that reaction helped me. And I gave her chances to kind of make up for saying that to me. And you know, I don't know, it's just like why it's good to pace things out, but also know when it's enough.
Yes,
and
when I am complete.
Yeah.
That's what I say to myself. Am I complete with this?
Yeah.
Am I complete with this
That's
living
interesting.
situation or this relationship or this job or like, am I complete? Because then it's kind of you leave with that piece of like, and there's moments where I'm like, I'm not complete, but I'm complete in not being complete.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
well, I was gonna say for me, like letting go is something I've never really been able to do. Like I remember even when I graduated from college, for like months after that, I still felt like the weight of the pressure of doing well in school and all this stuff. It must have taken me like a year to really let go of that being a chapter and like closing the book. And so I don't know why that's so difficult for me, but even like a lot of things, I can't really take them and like put them in this chapter and move on. The process is very difficult for me. And that's something I'm also working on as well. So even with, you know, with this guy, it's like, well, I don't want to dwell on it. I know that it's like, oh, close the book, moving on. But knowing that and actually physically feeling that are very different things. So I like that you're saying like I'm complete, because I don't think about it like that. For me, I think I need to let go of the control that I wanted, I guess. I mean, I don't really know what it means now that we're talking about this. I'm like,
right.
I don't know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But I don't want the stress of whatever something was to continue in my life. Like it's so unhealthy to hold on to that.
Totally.
So yeah, to me, I think of letting go. But I think maybe if I change my mindset to like, am I complete with this? That might be a better perspective for me to try.
Yay!
I'll try that out.
Yay!
See how it goes.
Yay! Well, thank you so much, and this has just been so much fun. And like, I know we could talk about real estate and talk about other things, but I just feel like I'm so happy that we talked about what we talked about, because I think, you know, if you need a great realtor in the LA area, yes, reach out to Justine. But in the meantime, it was just so cool to actually like really pull out like your beliefs and like your spirit and like what's gotten to where you are. And I think whoever watched this will be really inspired to just like ask themselves even like, what do I want to look back on my life? And like another permission slip for like how to live your life.
Yeah. I think it's so important to really like think about what you want, and not only the goals and the dreams that are kind of hard to grasp, but like your day-to-day.
Yeah.
Are you happy with your day-to-day? Are you happy or like, are you content and you're growing? Like to me, my life is all just about growth. I was like, every day I'm like, what can I do to be better than I was yesterday?
Yeah.
And those are tough conversations or sometimes easy conversations. Sometimes that's jumping in the ocean. Sometimes that's, you know, working all day at your job, you know, and I think everyone has that balance, and you just have to remind yourself to be really gentle with yourself. Like you just reminded me, it's like, because some days I'm like, I gotta get this done. And it's like, you know what? Is the world gonna end if this doesn't happen today? The answer is probably no. you know, in our lives. So, yeah, you are important. You're the most important person in your life. And that's something like I try to remind myself of because I put so many people before myself. And it's like, well, why? Why do I do that? What do I need? And what do I want? And how do I get that? But also it's a slow journey. You gotta remember that. You're not just gonna get there, and you have to have patience. So that's what I'm definitely working on, and yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so
fun. Yeah.
I love taking baths with other people. Who knew?
Right? I know. When I first was thinking about this, I was like, this is my favorite thing. This is my dream, right? And I'm like, this is the best.
Bathtubs. I know how much you love your baths. So.
Yeah. Well, and do you ever do baths normally, or is that part of your practice?
You know, I'm really bad at relaxing. Like really bad at it. I have to literally say to myself, I am going to relax right now. I have to like actually say that. And I think that's also why I haven't liked reading or all that stuff, because it's hard to feel like I'm productive when I'm doing something for myself. And that's another thing. Conversation for another day. But yeah, but that's something I'm working on as well, is like, what do I need to do for myself? And so relaxing is something I just am not good at. And baths are relaxing. And it's like I could sit in the bath and worry about all these other things that I should be doing. But if I'm going to have a bath, I want to enjoy having the bath. I want to be present in that bath. So it's hard for me, even just to allow myself to get to there.
Wow, yeah, it's cool. Well, I hope this inspires you. Maybe you take a bath. If you ever need help, I can make you one.
Yeah, I know. You made this one for me. I was like, you were like lavender. I was like, yeah, what? Let's do it. I just squeeze like some bubbles and some soap, and I'm like, and then I sit in there and I'm like, you know what? I'm sweating. I'm gonna get out.
I'm opposite. I'm like, yes, I can sweat for hours. Yeah. But it's been a practice. Well, thank you so much, and I hope that this episode just leaves you feeling really inspired to just get clear with what do you want and how do you want to live this one precious life in this body at this time. Maybe we have other lives we don't know. I don't know for sure. So we can bank at least on, what do we really want to create in this life, and maybe an invitation. I know in my own life I'm definitely going to be looking at, I'm already a very independent person, but where can I even be more independent in that sense of even my emotions or my energy or my wants? Like, am I holding myself back from traveling somewhere, going to do something or create something because like there's not a whole team of people to do it with? So I'm excited to live my own life in that way. I hope you are too. And until next time, so much love. Yay! And we'll link all of Justine's contact and social down below, because you're also working on some cool YouTube projects.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that.
So that'll be
just
all
live
the description.
Life. Yeah,
exactly.
You can do many things. Like, you don't have to do just one thing. You can do so many. So that's what I'm trying to do.
I love it. I know I keep calling our group of friends like, we're the Renaissance tribe. Like, everyone can do so many things.
Yeah.
And that's just what I want to surround myself